that a meeting that was scheduled for right now, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, has now been moved to 2 p.m. Eastern and 1 p.m. Central. Okay, that's report number one of what's coming out in what has been an absolutely chaotic 48 hours. We're going to dive into all of this. I just want everyone to be right up front with what is happening. Brett McMurphy, On 3 reporter, has reported this. He reported this last night, that Kiffin is essentially demanding to finish the season while simultaneously threatening to poach Ole Miss's roster and staff. If he can't, a source told McMurphy, it's unfortunately gotten even messier than expected as emotions are high. So there's another report about what's going on with Lane Kiffin and his departure from Ole Miss. Another one from Ross Dellinger. Ross Dellinger has sent pictures of players filtering into the Manning Center, the Ole Miss football facility, about 25 minutes ago. Excuse me. And then earlier, LSU executives and Lane Kiffin's reps held a call after the Tigers game at OU to continue solidifying the deal with travel plans, planes, etc. That's from Ross Dellinger, Paul, another reputable reporter. And then I'll give you one more just because I want to give you the scope of what's happening this morning. Bruce Feldman, another reputable college football reporter for The Athletic, says Lane Kiffin expected to accept LSU's offer to become the Tigers' next head coach. He's set to meet with this team. As they reported yesterday morning, LSU's been very confident it was going to land Kiffin. And now, again, the latest, the meeting has been moved to the afternoon. So, Paul, that's kind of a scope of what's going on. The expectation is still Lane Kiffin's headed to LSU. Unpack it. Go have at it.
Yeah, number one, we can't explain why a 9 o'clock meeting gets moved to 1. Doesn't really make any sense, but it could be one person, one critical person that is otherwise detained. But it's hard to imagine this ending any way but bad. And by the way, that's usually how most relationships with Lane Kiffin end, Matt. So this is par for the course. All the people that thought we had a new Lane Kiffin are finding out we don't. While his team has been having a glorious season, getting ready for maybe an SEC game, ultimately the college football playoff, he's been working overtime trying to figure out where he wants to go, other than the current job that he has. He ruled Florida out for myriad reasons. Bad vibe, didn't like some of the things Scott Strickland had done, maybe didn't like Scott Strickland, period. And is now going to LSU, which has an interim AD. We think everybody is new, but what LSU has is an infrastructure that Lane Kiffin knows well. He's competed a million times down there, and others have suggested to him. Kiffin said, I believe it was Friday night or Saturday, that he's going to call Pete Carroll and Nick Saban. Come on, he has been talking to Nick Saban all along. And most people firmly believe that Nick Saban, who once fired Lane Kiffin, as most others have, is suggesting to him, or has suggested, to go to LSU. I'm told that Saban said, had I stayed there, I would have won more national championships. That is debatable, by the way. But I think it shows that LSU is an easier place to win. There's really no other distractions. Even though recruiting's national now, the portal and all that, it is just a place that most coaches, even Ed Ogeron, could not miss winning a national championship.
Yeah, because you look at it, and that's been the biggest debate over the last 24 hours, 48 hours, really actually the last 2 weeks, but it's just began to crystallize that Lane Kiffin was going to go to LSU and be their next head coach. The guys that I sit in studio with, EJ Manuel and Joey Galloway, that was the big debate, especially from EJ's side, is like, bro, why would you leave? What don't you have at Ole Miss that you're going to have at LSU? So there's a couple of ways to look at this. One, I think on its surface, and Ole Miss fans, let's take the emotion out of it for a minute in the last 24 to 48 hours. I know that's hard to ask, but let's just take that out of it. When you look historically, that's not a debate. Historically, LSU is the better job. There are some that argue that LSU is a top 5 job in the country. One, proximity to recruits. You're the only show in town in the state of Louisiana. You don't have to fight players off in Louisiana. You have to not screw it up because they all want to come play. There's a foundation of high school recruiting that you can build a program, and the resources to go into the portal, which Lane Kiffin has proven he could do really, really well. That's the big picture. I think you talk to any coach, and I've talked to several of them, off the record. They're like, or LSU is no brainer, a top 5 job in the country. Now, with that being said, Paul, you look at the right here and the right now, and the right here and the right now is that Ole Miss is headed to the playoff. So there are those that think, well, wait a second. He's got better players at Ole Miss now than he does at LSU. Why does he think LSU is better? My response to them, again, I don't have a dog in this fight. My response to them, Paul, is that Lane Kiffin isn't making this decision and burning things to the ground for the right here, the right now. He's doing this for the long play of the future of sustainability at LSU. What I would say to that, number one, there's no question as we sit here this morning, LSU has been dysfunctional over the last month. That is indisputable. You've got the governor, you've got the Brian Kelly, you've got the lawsuit. That's part one. Part two, not disputable. Ole Miss seemingly lets Lane do whatever he wants and lets him have complete control. And so in doing this, I get that Lane goes to LSU with a vast program of resources and history. But Paul, in doing this, he's also giving up the control that he had at Ole Miss, which was, here's the money, we'll leave you alone.
He's giving that up, and he's also undoing, in my mind, years and years of work to rebuild a tarnished reputation. And I mean, we've all dealt with people that don't like Lane Kiffin, Tennessee fans. Never let him forget that he walked out. By the way, for a better job. USC at the time was better than Tennessee. Probably isn't anymore, but it was in 2010 or 2011 or in 2010 when he left. So that's the hard part, because I think everybody looks at Ole Miss, but think about this calculus here, Matt. And I think Lane Kiffin had to do the math. He looked at his team, very good, one loss, and it was barely a loss because they had the lead against Georgia. And I think this is just my thought. He looked at the college football playoff pool, and he said, we could get maybe a game or two in, but I think Lane Kiffin, in his estimation, he was probably not going to win the title. Because if you thought you were a real shot to win the college football playoff title, you would wait. You would say, you know what, I'll get Alabama one day. I'll get this job one day. But I think he decided that he wasn't going to win in his mind, and he could win one at LSU, which is what all these guys are ultimately after. And I can't come up with any other reason. He coveted the Florida job last year. You know that. Lane Kiffin is always looking to leave. I'll leave the psychology to someone else, but he's not hard to figure out. He's never satisfied, even though he was never been happy. Remember that documentary that came out about a month ago?
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to get a lot of downloads in the future. Do you? Because it was a well done documentary that portrayed Lane Kiffin as he was in late September, but it's now going to the trash heap because Kiffin is undoing all that. And why is he undoing it? Because there's something greener across the street. It just so happens to be down the Mississippi River in Baton Rouge.
Okay, so all right. He understands. Here's where I'm wrestling with this. Again, I'm realistic and pretty level-headed when it comes to stuff like this, in that I think Ole Miss and Oxford, I've been there numerous times, and I think it's a wonderful place. I really do. And I think they've got a damn good football team. And the irony of this, Paul, is I bet a lot of these players that are playing for Ole Miss right now end up playing with an LSU on their helmet here in the next couple of days. And so the move of this, and you said something interesting, and I just don't understand why the need to torch the place on the way out. Because some of the texts I've gotten this morning and some of the people that I've talked about this morning or talked to this morning is that it's gotten ugly to the point where Lane has to build a new staff, right? So what happens, Paul, when Lane's trying to build his new staff at LSU and now drags those staff members into the ultimatum with Ole Miss administrators saying, guys, you either go with him now or you're not coaching. It's more of like you need to make a decision. You're either for Think about all the tentacles and all the reach that's happening as we speak because Lane wants to do this now. This thing, I believe, at the end of the day is going to get so ugly because of the timing. And you know this better than anyone, having covered the SEC for your entire career. LSU and Ole Miss people like to recognize LSU as their biggest rival. And I think people in Starkville would have an argument about that. But because it's these two programs, one side's going to dig in, the other side's going to dig in. Lane's in the middle of it by his choosing, and he is now going to have to go to staff members and say, guys, let's go, we're going. And they're going to have to make a decision.
You want this, you got that. No way, watch them walk right past you. Run fast while you have the chance. Don't speak, let them look right